It started with a cufflink. Not a mysterious text, not lipstick on the collar, not even some late-night whispering on the phone. Just a single silver cufflink, engraved, polished, and unmistakably not mine, sitting on the floor by the foot of our bed like it belonged there. Now, I'm not a jewelry guy. Never have been. I've worn the same watch for 8 years, and I still don't know where I left my wedding ring after that plumbing incident in March. So when I bent down that morning to grab a sock and my hand landed on something cold and unfamiliar, I did what any man whose life hasn't yet imploded might do. I stared at it, turned it over in my palm, and said aloud, "Huh." And that's where the fun began. My name's Grant Mercer, 36, accountant, decent with spreadsheets, awful with plants. I married Taylor 5 years ago. She was fire and charm and confidence, and I was the kind of man who could calculate your retirement timeline while reheating leftover meatloaf. Opposites attract, they say, and then they attract trouble. That Tuesday started like most others. Taylor had left early. She taught yoga 3 days a week at a boutique studio downtown. She always kissed my cheek before she left, always left a half-empty coffee mug on the bathroom counter, and always locked the door behind her. But not this time. That was clue number 2. As I stood there with a cufflink in one hand and an open front door swaying gently behind me, something in my chest tapped out a warning. Not panic, just that subtle hum of discomfort, like when you're halfway through a movie and realize you've seen this plot before. I set the cufflink on the dresser. Didn't confront her. Didn't mention it over dinner. Why? Because I wasn't ready to be right. See, there's a strange thing that happens when you suspect betrayal. You don't go looking for answers. Not at first. You stall. You build up this paper-thin belief that maybe, just maybe, there's another explanation. Maybe her brother had stopped by. Maybe it was a student's lost item. Maybe. I was being paranoid. And maybe pigs fly first class. That evening, Taylor came home beaming. She was wearing that smile, the one she used to give me before date nights, back when she still cared if I noticed. She dropped her keys, kicked off her shoes, and asked if I'd remembered to pick up oat milk for her smoothies. I nodded. She kissed me. Light. Casual. Like someone doing their duty. Then she grabbed a wine glass, her third clue of the day, and poured herself a drink on a Tuesday. Taylor had a firm, no drinking on work nights rule she enforced with the same fervor she used to veto pineapple on pizza. So I watched her, this familiar stranger in leggings and a ponytail, and smiled like nothing was wrong. That night, as we lay in bed, I asked her something random. Something stupid. "Hey, Tay, you ever lose a piece of jewelry at work?" She shifted. "Jewelry? Yeah. Like? A ring, earring, or cufflink?" She laughed. "Cufflink? What am I, a hedge fund manager?" I chuckled with her. Even kissed her forehead. But the next morning, while she was still in the shower, I opened her dresser drawer and found the matching cufflink, sitting quietly beside a tie I didn't recognize. I didn't touch the tie, didn't even breathe too close to it. I just stood there, drawer half open, staring down at that slim, blue silk thing that screamed "not mine" in capital letters. It was the kind of tie a man wears when he's trying to impress someone. Tight cut, expensive fabric, a knot that says, "I read GQ, not spreadsheets." And it was lying in my wife's drawer like it had always lived there. I closed it gently, slowly, like sealing a secret back inside Pandora's box. Because here's the thing about discovering a second cufflink, you can't unknow it. You can't walk away and say, "Nah, maybe she bought a tie for a raffle." Not when it's right next to something that literally completes the other half of the crime scene. So what did I do? I went to work. Because that's what normal men do when their marriages are spiraling. They pretend everything's fine while they highlight quarterly reports and count the minutes until they can go home and pretend some more. But that day, pretending was harder. I caught myself rereading the same email 6 times. I called the client by the wrong name. I spent 23 minutes on LinkedIn, staring at the profile picture of a man I'd never met, Taylor's boss. The guy she swore up and down was just intense, not interesting. I didn't know who the tie belonged to, but I had a few guesses. That night, I made 2 changes. 1. I suggested we sync calendars, said something about being able to coordinate better for weekends and maybe a getaway. She smiled, said it was a cute idea. I sent her a calendar invite while we were sitting side by side on the couch. She accepted. 2. I moved the cufflink. Not out of guilt. Out of science. I placed it in the dish we use for spare keys and loose change, just to see if she'd notice. If she'd say anything. If she'd flinch. She didn't. She picked it up the next morning, turned it over in her fingers, and asked absently, "Is this yours?" I shook my head. She set it back down and walked away. No questions. Just a shrug. The calendar sync paid off 2 days later. I got a notification, Pilates class, 6:15 p.m. Studio's in. Now, listen. I'm not the jealous type. But when your wife books a Pilates class at a studio 30 minutes away during rush hour, and she never mentioned switching locations, you start thinking with your gut. So I did what every cool, calm, rational husband would do. I followed her. She wasn't lying about the destination. Studio's in was real. It was tucked between a vegan bakery and some place that looked like it only sold plants you couldn't pronounce. I parked across the street, 2 rows behind a black BMW with a Chase Bank executive decal on the back windshield. And then I saw her. Taylor. Hair up, mat in hand, leggings painted on, walking inside like everything was perfectly normal. So I waited. 45 minutes passed. I was starting to feel like a stalker with a mild backache when someone walked out the door that made my chest go tight. He was tall, athletic build, tight black shirt, same shade of silk blue peeking from the edge of his gym bag. And his cufflinks? Gone. Taylor didn't come out with him. She waited 10 minutes, then walked out alone, got in her car, drove home. But I didn't follow her this time. I followed him. If the second cufflink was suspicion, the third window was confirmation. I followed the guy, let's just call him Mr. Pilates, to a condo complex that looked like it came straight out of a luxury brochure. You know the type. Chrome gates, fake pond, the kind of landscaping that screams we don't do weeds here. He parked like he'd done it 100 times. Garage code, smooth entry, the whole nine. I didn't follow him in, wasn't trying to go full spy thriller. I just parked nearby, watched, waited, took mental notes. Then I did something low. Not illegal, not violent, just strategic. I Googled. Turns out, his name was Landon Keir. Not her boss. Better. Her former boss. VP of something with a title too vague to be real. The kind of guy who wore cologne to the gym and posted leadership quotes with hashtags like #grindset and #alphamind. And judging by Taylor's Instagram from 3 years ago, they'd worked together on a brand realignment campaign. A photo of them at a conference. Her in a dress I remembered. Him with his hand a little too close to her waist. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now? It was like seeing a matchbook in a house that had already burned down. Back home, Taylor was in the kitchen making pasta. She looked up when I walked in, smiled like she hadn't just left a yoga studio where her former boss also happened to be, coincidentally, sweating in sync. "How was work?" she asked, casually. "Oh, the usual," I said, hanging up my jacket. "Ran into Greg. You remember Greg, right? The one who caught his wife cheating." She froze just long enough to blink. "Right. Yeah, that was awful." "Yeah," I said, stirring the pot without asking. He said the worst part wasn't the affair. It was that he didn't find out sooner. Said he felt like the whole world knew before he did. Taylor didn't look up. Just grated more cheese. "Crazy, right?" I added, smiling. "Imagine being the last one to know your life's a joke." She let out a little laugh. "That's dramatic, even for Greg." I went upstairs early that night. I didn't want to keep playing chess with someone hiding a second board. I had a plan. I opened our shared calendar, copied the gym appointment, and made a new one in my own account. Same time, 2 days later. Label, Taylor plus Landon. Location, Studio's in. Visibility, public. Let her see it? Let him see it, if they were syncing phones. I just wanted to know how she'd react. 2 days later, she canceled the class. Didn't mention it. Just came home early. Wore pajamas. Offered wine. I asked, "No Pilates tonight?" She shook her head. Felt tired. And for a moment, I almost believed her. Until 11:42 p.m., when she got a text from Monica that read, "He saw the calendar. I'm done. Handle it." I stared at the screen for 5 full minutes. I wasn't the last to know anymore. Now I was first. And I wasn't going to let that go quietly. You ever sit across from someone you love and suddenly realize you're staring at a stranger? We were having dinner, grilled salmon, garlic asparagus, white wine. You know, a meal that says everything is fine, even when it clearly isn't. Taylor had gone all out. Candle on the table, music low, hair done like it was date night. She was leaning into the performance, and I'll give her credit, it would have worked if I hadn't already read the script. The text from Monica was still burned into my brain. "He saw the calendar. I'm done. Handle it." So I smiled. And I waited. Halfway through the meal, Taylor cleared her throat. I've been thinking, she said, stabbing a spear of asparagus with a little too much focus. We should take a trip. Maybe Napa. Or Lake Tahoe. I nodded. Sure. Always wanted to drink overpriced wine next to strangers in sweaters. She laughed, lightly. We need to reset. Get away. Just us. It was rehearsed. Word for word. This wasn't reconciliation. This was containment. Taylor didn't want to fix things. She wanted to manage me like a PR crisis. If she could keep me calm, she could keep the lie alive. But I was already building my exit, brick by brick. Earlier that day, I took the day off work. Told them I was fighting off a migraine. Which wasn't a lie. Betrayal has a way of lodging itself right behind your eyes and staying there. I drove down to my buddy Drew's office. He's a lawyer, the kind who wears polos to meetings and keeps whiskey in a desk drawer. I slid a manila folder across his desk, printouts, emails, calendar screenshots, the cufflink. He whistled low. She's good, he said, flipping through it. But not good enough. She's better than I thought, I said. That's the problem. Drew nodded slowly. So what do you want? Divorce? Cold? Scorched earth? I smiled. Let's start with frostbite. Save the fire for later. He leaned back. You've got enough here to make her uncomfortable. Financials. Working on it. She doesn't know I've been watching the accounts. He scribbled a note. Start gathering. Quietly. When the time comes, you'll want a full picture. And Grant, no sudden moves. Not yet. You've still got the element of surprise. Don't waste it. I nodded. Oh, I won't. So there we were, two actors in a dinner scene neither of us believed in. She poured more wine. I let her. She told me about her class earlier, the one she didn't actually attend. We did these crazy planks, she said, smiling. I thought I was going to fall flat on my face. Oh yeah? I asked, swirling the wine. I thought you canceled class. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Did I say class? I meant. I didn't go, but I watched a tutorial at home. Still did the workout. Makes sense, I said, not blinking. She set her fork down. Why are you acting weird? There it was. The first crack. I shrugged. Just tired. Thinking. About. Our future. She reached for my hand. Me too. And for a second, I wondered if she felt anything real in that moment. But then my phone buzzed. A message from a contact saved as L. Just one word. Tomorrow. Taylor saw the screen. She froze. I turned it face down. Work stuff, I said. And her smile came back, forced, but there. Like she was relieved I was hiding something too. Like that leveled the playing field. She didn't know L stood for Landon. And she didn't know I had invited him to lunch. The next day, I drove to a quiet bistro on 3rd Street. Patio seating, linen napkins, no one watching. I got there 10 minutes early and ordered coffee. At 12:01, Landon walked in. He looked exactly like the version of a man who'd sleep with someone else's wife. Buttoned down, smug smile, what you could see from space. He didn't recognize me at first, which made me smile wider. When he reached the table, I stood up and extended my hand. Landon, I said, thanks for making the time. He frowned. I'm sorry, do we? I'm Grant, Taylor's husband. The color drained from his face like someone pulled a plug. He didn't sit. Relax, I said, still standing. I didn't call you here to fight. I just figured if two men are going to share a woman, they should at least meet face to face. He sat. Eventually. I didn't know, he muttered. She said you two were separated. Classic, I said, nodding. And you believed her? He didn't answer. I leaned forward. Listen, I'm not here to threaten you. I don't care what kind of Pilates tango you two were doing. I just want you to understand something. I slid a photo across the table, him and Taylor outside studios in. Nothing salacious, just damning enough. I know everything. And she doesn't know I know. That gives me power. And that means I get to decide how this ends. He stared at the photo. Then back at me. What do you want from me? I sipped my coffee. Nothing. Not yet. Just wanted to see what kind of man you are. And now I know. He pushed the photo back. Are you going to tell her you talked to me? I smiled. You're going to do that part for me. That night, Taylor came home late. Her keys hit the counter like nothing had changed. She walked into the kitchen, dropped her bag, opened the fridge, and turned to me like always. But something in her eyes was different. Nervous. Hollow. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, I ran into Landon today. I looked up slowly from the couch. Did you now? She nodded, barely holding it together. Grant. Yes. She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. I just smiled. Take your time, I said, turning back to the TV. We've got all night. Taylor stood in the kitchen doorway like a child caught sneaking cookies, except this wasn't sugar we were dealing with. This was rot, and it had been growing under our roof for months. I ran into Landon, she said again. I looked at her like a man might look at a spider crawling across his shoe, calm, controlled, a little curious about what it'll do next. You don't say, I replied. She nodded once, twice. The air between us was thick enough to chew. We didn't talk much, she added, fiddling with the strap of her purse. Just awkward hellos. She waited for me to take the bait, to ask what happened, to open the door to a conversation where she could confess just enough to win back some dignity. I didn't. Instead, I stood up and walked over to the sink, rinsed out my coffee mug, and placed it on the drying rack like nothing had been said at all. Want tea? I asked. She blinked. What? Tea. I'm making some. Grant, can we talk? I paused, kettle in hand. Then I nodded. We can, but only if it's the truth. She hesitated. It is. The whole truth. She swallowed. Yes. I gave her one last look. Then start from the beginning. Now here's the thing about liars. When they finally decide to come clean, it's never clean. It's a drip. A strategic slow release of information designed to manage your reaction. Damage control disguised as honesty. Taylor sat at the kitchen table and folded her hands like we were at marriage counseling. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said. Classic opener. A crowd favorite. We were just talking at first. You know how intense work was last year. He was supportive. Supportive. I almost smiled. It got physical maybe, twice. Before I ended it, I knew it was a mistake. She looked up, gauging me, waiting to see if I'd explode. I didn't. Just twice, I said, like I was confirming a dinner reservation. She nodded. Not 3? 4. No, she said quickly. Too quickly. Because I have a receipt from the Hotel Linden on February 6th, I said, reaching into the drawer and sliding a copy across the table. And another from March. And one more from April. Her mouth opened, then closed. Like a fish in shallow water, realizing too late it's been caught. I didn't think you'd ever find out, she whispered. I know, I said. That's what bothers me most. We sat in silence for a long while. The kettle whistled. I let it scream until the sound became part of the air. Why? I asked, finally. She looked at her hands. I don't know. Yes, you do, I said flatly. People don't just fall into infidelity like potholes. There's always a reason, even if it's a stupid one. She exhaled. I felt invisible. That hit me. Not because it hurt, but because I had expected it. The standard answer from the cheater's handbook. It wasn't about him. It was about me. About what I wasn't getting. I did everything I could to support you, I said. Paid the bills. Cheered you on. Gave you space to grow. I know, she whispered. And you thanked me by sleeping with the guy who once CC'd me on an email about your team-building potential. Don't make this worse, she said. Oh, no. That was the worst. Everything after is just the credits. I left her at the table and walked into my office. Closed the door. Sat in the chair where I had first noticed the tiny cracks in our life, her unexplained late nights, the subtle shifts in routine, the faint scent of cologne that didn't belong to me. I pulled open the drawer where I kept the folder. The one with it all, screenshots, dates, details. I wasn't holding on to it because I needed revenge. I was holding on to it because I needed clarity. Sometimes, you need to see the whole crime scene before you can walk away from it. Later that night, she came into the room while I was reading. No makeup. No pretense. Just Taylor, stripped down to the person she was before all the secrets started. She sat on the edge of the bed, facing me. I'm sorry, she said, barely audible. I looked at her for a long moment. I believe you, I said. But I also don't care. She looked stunned, like she hadn't prepared for that response. You don't care. I don't care that you're sorry now, I clarified. You weren't sorry when you were texting him at midnight. You weren't sorry when you came home and kissed me like nothing happened. You were sorry when you got caught. She bit her lip. What happens now? I folded the page in my book. Marked my place. Now? You sleep in the guest room. Tomorrow, we talk logistics. Logistics. Living arrangements. Finances. Paperwork. Her eyes widened. You're divorcing me? I nodded once. Calm. Measured. Taylor, if there was ever a version of this where we worked through it, it ended the moment you let another man into our life without my consent. I can change. I believe that too, I said. but it won't be with me. She cried that night. Not sobbing, not begging, just a quiet stream of guilt and regret that dripped onto her pillow in the guest room while I lay awake down the hall. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly, because I wasn't unsure anymore. I wasn't suspicious. I was free. Mornings used to be soft. A shared toothbrush glass. The sound of Taylor humming some half-remembered tune while pouring coffee. Warmth and small routines. Now, mornings were quiet. Not peaceful, surgical. Like a hospital hallway after the news has dropped. She stayed in the guest room. I let her. That door closed with the weight of everything she didn't say at dinner. And everything I didn't need to hear. I made eggs that morning. Scrambled, with chives. I only ever chopped chives when I was trying to feel normal. Something about the sound of the knife, the rhythm, reminded me that life could still be neat and sharp and under control. Taylor didn't come down until 9:40. Hair tied up, hoodie draped around her like she was trying to disappear into it. "Hey," she said, voice low. I nodded. "Coffee's fresh." She poured a cup and stood there holding it like a prop. "I didn't sleep much," she offered. "I slept fine," I replied. She gave a little nod, like she'd expected that. And she probably had. We didn't speak for the rest of breakfast. Just clinks of forks and the occasional creak of the house, like the walls were stretching around the silence. At 11 a.m., she sat across from me in the living room. No wine. No pretense. Just a stack of folders between us labeled with all the things that used to hold our life together. Mortgage. Health insurance. Bank. I started pulling statements, she said, not meeting my eyes. I figured we'd want to divide accounts before things get messy. They already did, I said. This is just the cleanup. She flinched, but didn't argue. We went line by line. Who would take the car? Me. What to do with the house? Sell it. How to divide the accounts equally, plus penalties. She kept trying to soften it. Small sighs, brief glances. Like she was hoping I'd look up and say, maybe we can fix this. I didn't. Because I wasn't here for redemption. I was here for the blueprint on how to burn it all down without setting myself on fire. Later that evening, I got a text from my buddy Drew. "D, let me know when you're ready for her to sign. I've got the revised papers." We tightened the clauses. She walks away with clean hands, but empty pockets if she tries anything shady. I typed back. "Gee, not yet. One more thing to do first." Because I wasn't just going to walk away. Not yet. 2 days later, Taylor got a call from HR. I know this because she stormed into the kitchen with her phone in one hand and her face in the other. "They're letting me go," she said, like she didn't understand the words. "Oh," I asked, flipping through the mail. "Landon," she muttered. "He told them we were involved. That it compromised operations. Said I initiated it." I raised an eyebrow. Wow. Shocking that a man who sleeps with married women turns out to be spineless under pressure. Her voice cracked. "I didn't think he'd, Of course you didn't," I said, calmly. "He got what he wanted. Now he's protecting himself. And you gave him everything he needed to do it." She sat down. Slowly. Like the chair had betrayed her, too. "What am I supposed to do now?" she whispered. I tilted my head. "You always said you wanted a clean slate. Looks like you got it." She looked up at me. And in that moment, for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't see guilt in her eyes. I saw fear. That night, I sent her a file. Just one. A PDF. Titled, Exit Strategy, Reviewed. She read it. I know because she came into my office 20 minutes later, phone still in hand. This settlement, it's lower than what we agreed. I revised it," I said. "You can contest it. But I'd suggest reading the appendix first." She frowned, scrolling. Then she stopped. She had found the addendum. A list of everything I could legally disclose if this went to court. Timestamp texts. Photos. Hotel receipts. A signed NDA Landon made her sign before their last time. "Oh yeah, I had that too." "You kept all this?" she asked, breath-catching. "Didn't keep it," I said. "I built it. While you were busy playing house with your new hobby." She sat. Quiet now. The fury drained. What took its place was resignation. "You were never going to scream at me, were you?" "No," I said. "That would have made you the victim." We signed the next day. No lawyers. Just a notary and 2 pens. The moment the ink dried, she let out a breath that sounded like a sob that never fully committed. "I never thought it'd end like this," she said, quietly. "I did," I said. "The moment I found the cufflink, I saw the whole thing." She stared at me. "So all this time, you were, what? Just waiting to gut me?" I shrugged. No. I was waiting to wake up. She grabbed her purse, walked to the door, hesitated. Do you hate me? She asked. I didn't answer at first. Then, no. A pause. But I don't know the woman I married anymore. And I don't mourn strangers. She left without another word. And I finally let the door close behind her. No more pretending. No more puzzles. Just a man, a house, and peace. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to fix something broken. I was building something better. 3 weeks after she left, the silence had a shape. It wasn't just the lack of footsteps down the hall or her playlist humming through the speakers. It was how the entire house breathed differently. Lighter. Like it had finally exhaled after holding in a lie too long. I didn't miss her. That part surprised me. What I missed were things that never really existed. The version of us I thought we were. The security I used to feel when she said, I love you, like those words were bulletproof. They weren't. Turns out they were made of wet tissue paper. I got used to the silence. Started sleeping better. Even started running again, something I hadn't done since before the late work nights became routine. One night, I came home from a jog, sat on the front steps, and just watched the sky. That's when I realized I wasn't heartbroken. I was clean. I got a call from Landon's ex-wife. Apparently, my little lunch with Mr. Cufflink had set off a chain reaction. He confessed under pressure, shaky voice, half apologies, the works. She wanted to hear the truth from me. So I met her. Neutral ground. Coffee shop downtown. She was calm, poised, but her fingers tapped the table like she was itching to punch something or someone. Can I ask, she said, why didn't you go public? Why didn't you blow it all up? I stirred my coffee. Because a public fire makes everyone smell like smoke. I wanted a controlled burn. She nodded slowly. You're dangerous. I smiled. Only to people who lie. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. Thank you. For what? For not letting him walk away untouched. That was the moment I realized. Revenge doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it walks in heels, signs a custody agreement, and keeps the house. Taylor's mom called me 2 months later. I ignored it. Then she texted. Just want to say, I'm sorry. She's lost a lot. Some of it she hasn't even processed yet. I didn't respond. Because the truth is, I didn't attend the funeral of our marriage with flowers and tissues. I left the eulogy unfinished and walked out before they lowered the casket. Let her mourn what she destroyed. I had nothing left to bury. Taylor reached out once. A single text. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I stared at it for a while. Not out of confusion, but because it was the wrong question. She should have asked. Do you think you'll ever need to? Because the answer was no. I didn't need to forgive her. I just needed to forget the part of me that ever needed her. It happened on a Friday. New apartment. New keys. A coffee table that didn't wobble like our relationship did. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the boxes. Most of it was mine. My books, my coffee mugs, my worn and leather chair that somehow survived the split. But it wasn't the stuff that made it mine. It was the absence of apology. No looking over my shoulder. No second-guessing compliments. No wondering if a quiet phone meant someone else's name lit up the screen. Just me. And peace. People think revenge means burning the other person to the ground. Nah. Real revenge is rebuilding without them. Real revenge is laughing again and meaning it. It's watching the wreckage shrink in the rearview mirror while you head somewhere better. That cufflink? The one that started it all? I threw it in the river on the way out of town. One final piece of someone else's lie, washed clean by someone else's strength. And me? I drove on. No more puzzles. Just freedom.